Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday Stoveside Chats. My name is Chad Blackwelder. I do food service marketing for the Department of Agriculture. Um, this is, I don't know, the fourth or fifth installment of this. Today we have Jesse Leadbetter from Freshlist in Charlotte. Just kind of waiting to see Jesse pop up here on the screen, and then I'll invite him in. Um, all right, there he is. Yeah, let's see. Hey, Jesse.
Hello, sir. How's it going?
I'm doing good. I hope you are.
I am. Our AC's out in the office, so I'm doing the interview from home. So hopefully you can hear me okay. The wind's not bad.
I can. Perfect. Cool. Well, thanks
Sweet.
for joining us today. I really appreciate it. We'll get right into it. Tell us how you made your way from St. Louis to North Carolina.
Oh man, that could take a lot longer than 10 minutes. I was born in St. Louis. My mom had me when she was young. Lived with my grandparents and her, and then she wanted to move us down to Texas when I was about six to, find a better life. So we ended up going down to Texas. I spent most of my childhood down there. Graduated in 2000, moved back to Missouri for a year, and then just wanted to move somewhere different altogether. Ended up out in North Carolina in 2005 and been here ever since. So I love it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it sounds like you grew up much like me, working in my grandfather's. He had a huge garden, and we picked and shucked a lot of corn and shelled peas and did a lot of grueling work out in the garden, which I hated back then, but now I
Yeah.
wouldn't change it for the world. And it obviously led to something pretty big for you. So tell us how Freshlist got started and a little bit about the company.
Yeah. That is exactly the same experience I had. Those things were chores that I could not wait to just, run to college and leave all those things behind. Ended up, climbing the corporate ladder for a little bit. And then when I moved to the Belmont neighborhood here in Charlotte about 12 years ago, we ended up buying a little bit of land next to us that was abandoned and had been overrun by kudzu, and turned it into this little farm you see behind me. Actually, didn't intend on. We got some chickens back there, but just throwing seeds in the ground and getting chickens and becoming interested in food production was kind of that spark for me. That was what helped me figure out what I wanted to do with my life and how I was going to get out of corporate America. And I remember calling my grandma for the first time when I was trying to figure out how to can tomatoes, and she's like, "You're trying to do what? Like, I thought you left all of that." So um, yeah, so I had circled back with a guy that I grew up with, best friend, Brad, and we ended up starting the company 2014 when we officially incorporated, and it's been a roller coaster ever since.
Yeah. So I'm going to quote you from an article that I read. The whole system isn't designed to accommodate small and local anymore. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's all been pushed front and center, the past couple of months. The small farmers, um, to grow and to be profitable and to thrive as a small grower is not easy. You're going to farmers markets, and and like in Charlotte, you have different farmers markets opening in every neighborhood, and it puts these farmers in positions where they've got to figure out which markets they go to and how they're going to get their product to the people that want it. But at the same time, they're also playing, the farmer role and the accountant role, and all the other things that come along with running a business, when farming, in itself is a lot of work. And so our system, we don't understand the true cost of food. When people want to go to the grocery store and get eggs for 250 a dozen, and then they're shocked when they see them, at a market for 550, not
Mhm.
understanding that the way that animals are raised and how that food is made has been kind of hidden behind a shield from most of us, to where you just don't understand what those chickens are being fed and how they're being raised. I think if you could put a live stream camera at a drive, a lot of people would just keep on driving and not order that food. So
Yeah. Um, what are some of the challenges that you faced in trying to create a better food community in the Charlotte area?
Oh man, well, I think the cost of food is a big one. Just educating people about all the things that it took me such a long time to learn just by actually growing here on this little piece of land. Those lessons about how hard it is to grow a tomato, and that's why the tomato costs this, or how hard it is to fight pests, and that's why certain people spray, do limited amount of spraying, and just understanding food production. It only took a generation for us to get completely removed from how food is produced, and trying to educate people, while on the other hand you have places that are just willing to deliver whatever kind of food you want to your door, and with no regard to how it's made or what the impacts are, on the environment and the economy. So
Yeah. Now, a lot of so kind of in a nutshell, like I know that you're not a co-op, but like I guess the architecture of that supply chain for you is kind of set up like that, right? So you're dealing with farmers within, is it still a 50-mile radius of Freshlist?
we've never defined it by mileage, and one of the reasons for us was we wanted to have enough flexibility so that we could be relevant to our customers. So, because restaurants were our core customer initially, if you go to a chef in January and they're like, what do you have 50 miles? And they, kale and sweet potatoes and some apples, and, they can't buy as much from you. Whereas if you can say, well, I've got local kale, sweet potatoes, and apples, but then I also have, kumquats from Charleston from this farm, and kind of like still having that same transparency and the same set of standards, allowed us to just have a bigger impact on what we can become and what we can help our these chefs kind of transition. It's a long play. I mean, we're not going to change this overnight, and so we've got to be able to help them kind of take steps towards a direction that we're trying to go. And so the food hub partners throughout the state and in South Carolina, those of all that food system's really growing and getting connected on a regional level, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. So that's a pretty cool service you provide. When I had my restaurant here in Sanford, I wish I would have had folks like yourself who can kind of compile that information and get it out to the chefs. They place an order, you deliver, because it is a lot of work, and from getting into your kitchen at 9 in the morning and prepping all day, and then trying to get out to the farms and go to the ABC store and the bank and the butcher shop. It's a lot to do. So it's really cool that you're taking some of that off the chefs and making it easier for them to operate on a daily basis. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, having now spent time with chefs and farmers, we had about 300 chefs that are using the platform, at least up until March. I'm not sure who's busier, chefs or farmers, because I feel like both of them just work nonstop, and it's some of it's just painstaking and tireless labor, but all in the name of good food, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that network you have going helps keep dollars within the community also, which is really important right now in light of the circumstances that small businesses are under, and we're seeing more relief for bigger kind of chain places, which is scary because then the dollars don't stay in the community. So you guys are doing important.
Yeah, when I first started getting into food systems and really trying to understand what the landscape looked like, I assumed that local was more important for some of the wrong reasons, or maybe just not the primary ones. I thought, food miles or things like that. But really, as we got into it and really started making transactions and helping these farmers, we realized that that economic benefit of spending $100 at a farmer's market versus spending $100 at Walmart, and where that money goes the second you spend it, when it stays within Brent Barbie and Kate Brune and Mindy Robinson, all these farmers in this area whose kids are going to baseball practice with your kids, and they're going to the same restaurants, and it creates a more, I guess, independent and sustainable economy, in addition, obviously, to the transparency. And just over the past 2 months, seeing the fear of people realizing that, I don't know where my food comes from, and if it stops coming from wherever that is, I don't know how I'm going to eat. There's definitely a lot more to it than what we initially thought.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the conversation you had a couple of years ago with Chef Clark Barlow, who was a ravenous locavore. I mean, the guy is incredible what he's done. How did that impact you and what you guys are doing at Freshlist?
Clark was one of those guys that I read about, in my early days of kind of, starting Freshlist and trying to understand who was doing what. He was the guy that was pushing the envelope, and I met with him. We had a beer. It was cool to finally get to sit down with him. I went to Heirloom their opening day. They ended up getting snowed out, but we went the second day. It was Valentine's Day and had beef heart 3 ways. I just finished being vegan for a full year to try and like cleanse my Texas culinary habits. So dove right in with beef heart 3 ways. It was great. But to be honest, our conversation was good in the sense of, him kind of sharing knowledge, but he was one of those guys who was out there and already had all these relationships and was willing to do the work to find these farmers and to buy product. And I think he was kind of, helping me, but in a way where he's like, I don't really know that I need what you have. And initially that kind of hurt me because I was like, man, I want people like Clark to use us. He eventually did, towards the end of his time at Heirloom. But what we found is like the service that we were able to offer these chefs were the ones who wanted the same things he was doing, but didn't have the time to really go out and find all these farmers and build these relationships. So you need people like Clark who are going to pull the rest of the community in that direction. But then you also have to be able to kind of meet those people where they are and kind of help them, get to that point. So,
yeah. And, I've said this before, I don't really like the word influencer, but chefs are the original influencers. So the fact that you're, doing business with those guys and kind of partnering up with them, they can open up a lot of doors and get the general public on board. Which brings me to my next point. Now, you've always, in concert with working with chefs and restaurants, you've been available to the general public as well, right?
We've done a few pilot programs. It's a direction that we wanted to go because we really feel like there are some farms that are still a little too small for us to, if they don't have the volume for a restaurant, maybe they're not cut out to grow in that volume. And we really felt like we had to create additional channels to move product. I mean, that's what this is all about, right? Like just trying to create better, shorter, more transparent channels to get your food. We just weren't ready as a company yet. We were small. We had 3 employees up until, the end of last year, have 8 now. We've been growing quickly, just kind of in response to everything. But it's the direction we wanted to go because, I had a lot of friends that are asking, hey, I'd love to be able to, to buy that stuff. Tell me, I don't have time to go to the farmer's market. So we knew it was going to be an important way to get that food to people, but it was going to take us a while to get to that point. But all of that got thrown out the window. Our plans for gradually getting into direct to consumer over the course of, 6 to 9 months got thrown out the window, March 13th ish, whenever we made the decision that we had to pivot right then. So.
How did leaning into that more, how did that work out for you guys during when the restaurants weren't doing any business at all? Was that able to kind of keep you guys going to a certain degree?
Yeah, it's been chaotic, to be honest with you. I finally took a day off on Friday. I went to Wilmington for the weekend. I'd worked 90 days straight. The team has been just nonstop. We felt like we had to act quickly for the sake of our farmers that depended on us to move product to farms. We knew I was down in New Orleans at the National Good Food Conference that they were doing down there, and just kind of seeing firsthand these other food hubs that were getting calls from, New York and DC and all over the country that our restaurants were shutting down, and we saw where things were going. And so we didn't have a whole lot of time to plan and strategize. We had to just dive in and get to work. And so we have a couple of country clubs here in Charlotte, Myers Park Country Club and the club at Longview, which are, they buy stuff from us on the wholesale level, but their members stepped up and wanted to support us and, try to make sure that we were able to continue moving product for the farms. And from there, it really grew. We have, some delivery drop points and stuff throughout Charlotte and a couple of zip codes that we deliver to. We're going to be expanding that. It's kind of the next move is expanding, the places that we deliver to and the access points for people. And then also working with some of the food hubs in the region that we got to know, 4P Foods up in DC, Grow Food down in Charleston, Swamp Rabbit in Greenville. all of us were working together, talking on weekly basis and Slack channels and just really trying to communicate. And I think it was crazy and chaotic, and we definitely put in some long hours and continue to do so, but it helped. This whole pandemic has kind of helped people appreciate local, and I don't know how much of that will continue once everyone feels comfortable enough going back to a grocery store, but we're definitely taking advantage of the opportunity and trying to just get in front of as many people as we can.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to a chef friend of mine, and she said that the restaurant where she works, they had talked about doing online ordering for 2 years, and they figured it out in 2 days once the orders came down that they had to close down. So it definitely expedited a lot of these what were thoughts and put them into practice, I guess. But anyway, look, I know you're busy. I'm sorry about your air conditioner. I hope that gets sorted out pretty soon. Thank you for joining us, Jesse. And I hope that you get to take another day off pretty soon. Head back down to the coast.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Good deal. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
Bye-bye. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.